Einstein didn't believe it was possible. Stephen Hawking said it could be the greatest scientific discovery of all time. What discovery stumped the greatest scientific minds of the last century, and why did it force them to rethink the origins of our universe? New, more powerful telescopes have revealed secrets of our universe that have raised new questions about the origins of life. But hasn't science proven that we don't need God to explain the universe? Lightning, earthquakes, and even babies have all been explained away as acts of God. What's so different about this discovery, and why has it stunned the scientific world? This discovery, and what molecular biologists have learned about the complex coding in DNA, has led many scientists to now accept that the universe appears to be part of a grand design. Surprisingly, many scientists who talk about God have no religious faith at all. So what are these mind-blowing discoveries that have scientists suddenly talking about God? 3 breakthrough discoveries in astronomy and molecular biology stand out. The universe had a beginning. The universe is suitable for life. DNA coding reveals intelligence. The claims of leading scientists about these discoveries may shock you. But let's consider them. Since the dawn of civilization, man has gazed at the stars in awe, wondering what they are and how they got there. Although the naked human eye can see about 6,000 stars on a clear night, Hubble and other powerful telescopes show that there are trillions of them, concentrated in more than 100 billion galaxies. Our sun is like a single grain of sand on the world's beaches. Until the 20th century, however, most scientists believed that our own Milky Way galaxy was the entire universe and that there were only about 100 million stars. Most scientists believed that our universe never had a beginning. They believed that mass, space, and energy had always existed. But in the early 20th century, astronomer Edwin Hubble discovered that the universe was expanding. By rewinding the process mathematically, he calculated that everything in the universe, including matter, energy, space, and even time itself, actually had a beginning. The shock waves reverberated throughout the scientific community. Many scientists, including Einstein, reacted negatively. In what Einstein later called the biggest mistake of my life, he rigged the equations to avoid the implications of a beginning. Perhaps the most vocal opponent of the beginning of the universe was British astronomer Sir Fred Hoyle, who sarcastically called the creation event the Big Bang. He stubbornly clung to his steady-state theory that the universe had always existed. So did Einstein and other scientists until the evidence for a beginning became overwhelming. The elephant in the room about a beginning is that something or someone outside of scientific research must have started it all. Finally, in 1992, satellite experiments proved that the universe did indeed have a single beginning in an incredible burst of light and energy. While some scientists called this the moment of creation, most preferred to call it the Big Bang. Astronomer Robert Jastrow tried to help us imagine how it all began. He described the event this way: the picture suggests a cosmic hydrogen bomb exploding. The moment the cosmic bomb exploded marked the birth of the universe. Science cannot tell us what or who caused the universe to come into being. But some believe it points strongly to a creator. British theorist Edward Milne wrote a mathematical treatise on relativity that concluded with the words, "As to the first cause of the universe, in the context of expansion, it is left for the reader to fill in, but our picture is incomplete without him." Another British scientist, Edmund Whittaker, attributed the beginning of our universe to the divine will creating nature out of nothing. Many scientists were struck by the parallel of a one-time creation event out of nothing with the biblical account of creation in the book of Genesis. Before this discovery, many scientists considered the biblical account of creation out of nothing to be unscientific. Astronomer Jastrow called himself an agnostic, but he was forced to admit that, we now see how the astronomical evidence leads to the biblical view of the origin of the world. Another agnostic, George Smoot, a Nobel Prize-winning scientist, also acknowledges the parallel. There is no doubt that there is a parallel between the Big Bang event and the Christian idea of creation out of nothing. Scientists who had once scoffed at the Bible as a book of fairy tales now acknowledged that the biblical concept of creation out of nothing had always been correct. Cosmologists, who specialize in the study of the universe and its origins, soon realized that a random cosmic explosion could never produce life any larger than a nuclear bomb, unless it was specifically designed to do so. And that meant that some designer had consciously planned it. They began using words like superintelligence, creator, and even supreme being to describe this designer. Physicists figured out that for life to exist, gravity and other forces of nature had to be just right, or our universe could not exist. If the expansion rate had been any slower, gravity would have sucked all the matter back in a big crunch. We're not just talking about a 1 or 2% decrease in the expansion rate of the universe. Stephen Hawking wrote, "If the rate of expansion 1 second after the Big Bang had been smaller by even 1 part in 100,000 trillion, the universe would have collapsed again before it had reached its present size." On the other hand, if the expansion rate had been just a fraction faster than it was, galaxies, stars, and planets would never have formed, and we wouldn't be here. And for life to exist, the conditions in our solar system and on our planet also have to be just right. For example, we all know that without an oxygen atmosphere, none of us could breathe. And without oxygen, water couldn't exist. Without water, there would be no rainfall for our crops. Other elements, such as hydrogen, nitrogen, sodium, carbon, calcium, and phosphorus, are also essential for life. But that's not all there is to life. The size, temperature, relative proximity, and chemical composition of our planet, sun, and moon also have to be just right. And there are dozens of other conditions that had to be carefully fine-tuned, or we wouldn't be here to think about it. Scientists who believe in God might have expected such fine-tuning, but atheists and agnostics have been unable to explain the remarkable coincidences. Theoretical physicist Stephen Hawking, an agnostic, wrote, "The remarkable fact is that the values of these numbers appear to have been very finely adjusted to make the evolution of life possible." But couldn't this fine-tuning be attributed to chance? What, then, are the odds that human life would arise by chance in a random explosion in cosmic history? The fact that human life was possible as a result of the Big Bang defies the laws of probability. Scientists have calculated the odds and found that it is only 1 in 12 trillion. A person with their eyes closed would have a much easier time finding one specially marked grain of sand on all the beaches in the world in one try. Another example of how unlikely it is that a random Big Bang would produce life is one person winning over 1,000 consecutive mega-million-dollar lotteries after buying only one ticket for each occasion. How would you react to such news? Impossible, unless it was fixed by someone behind the scenes, which is what everyone would think. And that is what many scientists conclude, that someone behind the scenes designed and created the universe. This new understanding of how miraculous human life is in our universe has led agnostic astronomer George Greenstein to ask, is it possible that suddenly, without intention, we have stumbled upon scientific proof of a supreme being? However, as an agnostic, Greenstein maintains his faith in science rather than a creator to ultimately explain our origins. Jastrow explains why some scientists are reluctant to acknowledge a transcendent creator. There is a kind of religion in science. It is the religion of the person who believes that there is order and harmony in the universe. This religious faith of the scientist is upset by the discovery that the world arose under conditions in which the known laws of physics are invalid and which we cannot detect as the result of forces or circumstances. When this happens, the scientist loses control. If he actually studied the consequences, he would be traumatized. It is understandable why scientists like Greenstein and Hawking seek other explanations rather than attributing our finely tuned universe to a creator. Hawking speculated that there might be other invisible and unprovable universes, raising the possibility that one of them, ours, is perfectly suited to life. However, since his proposal is speculative and untestable, it can hardly be called scientific. Although he was also an agnostic, British astrophysicist Paul Davies dismisses Hawking's idea as too speculative. He writes, "Such a belief must be based on faith, not on observation." Although Hawking has continued to lead the research into purely scientific explanations for our origins, other scientists, including many agnostics, have accepted what appears to be irrefutable evidence for a creator. Hoyle wrote, "The common-sense interpretation of the fact suggests that a superintelligence has played with physics as well as chemistry and biology, and that there are no blind forces in nature worth speaking of." Although Einstein was not religious and did not believe in a personal God, he called the genius behind the universe an intellect of such superiority that, compared with it, all the systematic thinking and action of men is an utterly insignificant reflection. Atheist Christopher Hitchens, who spent much of his life writing and arguing against God, was most perplexed by the fact that life could not exist if things were different by 1 degree or 1 hair. Davis admits, "There is compelling evidence to me that there is something behind all this. It seems as if someone fine-tuned the numbers of nature to create the universe. The impression of design is overwhelming." But astronomy is not the only field in which science has seen evidence of a creator. Molecular biologists have discovered intricately complex design in the microscopic world of DNA. In the 20th century, scientists learned that a tiny molecule called DNA is the brain of every cell in our bodies, as well as every other living thing. Yet the more they learn about DNA, the more amazed they become by its brilliance. Scientists who believe that the material world is all that exists, materialists such as Richard Dawkins, argue that DNA evolved by natural selection without a creator. Yet even the most ardent evolutionists admit that the origin of DNA's complex design is inexplicable. The complexity of DNA led its co-creator, Francis Crick, to believe that it could never have arisen naturally on Earth. Crick, an evolutionist who believed that life was too complex to have originated on Earth and must have come from outer space, wrote, "An honest man, armed with all the knowledge now available to us, could only say that in some ways the origin of life at this point seems almost miraculous. So many conditions would have to be fulfilled for it to begin. The coding underlying DNA reveals an intelligence that boggles the mind. A single pinhead of DNA contains the information equivalent of a stack of paperback books that would circle the Earth 5,000 times. And DNA works like a language, with its own highly complex software code. Microsoft founder Bill Gates has said that DNA's software is far more complex than any software we have ever designed." Dawkins and other materialists believe that all this complexity arose through natural selection. However, as Crick noted, natural selection could never have produced the first molecule. Many scientists believe that the coding in the DNA molecule indicates intelligence far beyond what could arise from natural causes. Leading atheist Anthony Fly's atheism came to an abrupt end in the early 21st century when he studied the intelligence behind DNA. Fly explains what changed his mind. "I think the DNA stuff showed that intelligence must have been involved in putting these enormously diverse elements together. The enormous complexity by which the results were achieved seems to me to be the work of intelligence. It now seems to me that the results of more than 50 years of DNA research have provided the materials for a new and enormously powerful argument for design." Although Fly was not a Christian, he recognized that the software underlying DNA was too complex to have arisen without a designer. The discovery of incredible intelligence underlying DNA, this former leading atheist says, has provided the materials for a new and enormously powerful argument for design. While many scientists still seek to expel God from the universe, most recognize the religious implications of these new discoveries. In his book The Grand Design, Stephen Hawking, who does not believe in a personal God, attempts to explain why the universe does not need God. Yet, when confronted with the evidence, even Hawking also admitted, there must be a religious subtext here. But I think most scientists prefer to avoid the religious side of this question. As an agnostic, Jastrow had no Christian intentions behind his conclusions. However, he freely acknowledges the compelling arguments for a creator. Jastrow writes of the shock and despair experienced by scientists who thought they had driven God out of their world. For a scientist who lived by faith in the power of reason, this story ends like a bad dream. He has climbed the mountains of ignorance, he is about to conquer the highest peak. When he gets over the last rock, he is met by a group of theologians who have been sitting there for centuries. If there is a superintelligent creator, the question arises, what is he like? Is he just some force, like in Star Wars, or is he a personal being like us? Since we are personal and relational beings, wouldn't the one who created us also be personal and relational? Many scientists, such as Arthur Scholo, a professor of physics at Stanford University and a Nobel laureate in physics, believe that these new discoveries provide compelling evidence for the existence of a personal God. He writes, "It seems to me that when confronted with the wonders of life and the universe, we need to ask why, not just how. The only possible answers are religious ones. I find a need for God in the universe and in my own life. If God is personal, and since he has given us the ability to communicate, wouldn't we expect him to communicate with us and let us know why we are here?" As we have seen, science cannot answer the questions about God and the purpose of life. However, since the Bible was right about creation from nothing, can it also be true about God, life and purpose? Or other religious books that are older than the Bible itself? The essence is common. In many ancient books there is a common mission of prophets through whom God spoke. That all religions are connected, despite some differences, it is all one fabric on which the pattern is written. And all world religions and their dogmas are connected, woven into a single whole. This is always worth remembering.